Hello, everyone, and welcome to another RUSM live stream. This may be just one of my favorite live streams because it's with one of my favorite people, and that's Kayla Blanchard. Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
All right,
Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for joining us. So my name is Monica Garcia. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Associate Director for the Office of Career Attainment here at Ross University. And I just want to say right up front that Kayla and I know each other very well before everyone watching starts wondering why we're so familiar. And we could talk a little bit more about how we know each other in just a second, but let me go ahead and introduce Kayla. So earlier today, I was messaging her and I said, hey, Kayla, send me a quick bio. And she responds to me and she says, well, I think you know me pretty well, so I don't think I need to send you a bio. So here we go. I'm going to tell you what I know about Kayla. So Kayla was a nurse before she joined Ross. She joined Ross in 2017, and she's really just been a rock star ever since. She was really involved in student government, which is how I know her. And she just recently accepted an internal medicine pre-match position at Mount Sinai Hospital in Chicago. So she won't be going through the main match, but she is going to be going to Hawaii next week to celebrate with her husband, Dylan. So I'm very jealous about that. And she told me she'll try to fit me into her. So, hi, Kayla.
Hi. You can definitely fit in my suitcase.
Not your carry-on, though.
No.
All right, so why don't we start at the beginning of your journey? Why don't you talk to our audience members a little bit about how you learned about Ross and what made you start your journey with Ross?
Sure. So I had been planning to apply to medical school for a little while, but while I was doing my pre-med courses, I was also working as a nurse on night shift. And so I realized that I may not be a super competitive candidate for US schools. And it just happened, coincidentally, that one of my old friends from undergrad went to Ross, and she messaged me out of the blue, kind of. I hadn't spoken to her in years. And she was like, I heard you're applying to med school. I just wanted to tell you about Ross. I don't know if you're considering the Caribbean route, but I had a really good experience. So I started to look into the Caribbean route in general, but specifically Ross. And what I was finding from student blogs and YouTube videos that students had posted over the years, one of the recurring themes was that Ross is really like a family, and that the people who work at Ross really support you like a family. I was like, well, if I'm going to move to the Caribbean, that sounds like something I would be interested in, is having a support that feels like family, that maybe feels like home. And what I found once I came to Ross was that was true pretty much every step of the way. From the very beginning, when I was interviewed by Jen Gray, she was super kind. She included my husband in the interview, actually. And then she kept up with me every step of the way, like the whole summer before I started. And then every year, she just texted me earlier today, she really has kept up with me this entire time. And then, in basic sciences, my grandmother passed away right before I took step one. And Jessalyn in student affairs really helped me out a lot and supported me and made sure that I had time off to go home and say my goodbyes. And then even in clinical, obviously I had Monica to answer all of my questions and help me through the match process and all the match stress. And, Danielle, who doesn't work here anymore, but she, taught me how to ask for a letter of recommendation. And so, just every step of the way, it really did feel like a family. So I think that when I applied to Ross, I definitely applied for the right reason, because it seemed to be true the entire way through.
Yeah, no, and I think, for folks that are listening in, if you have the opportunity to, cross paths with Jen Gray or Jessalyn, they're just absolutely amazing. even just the relationship that we've developed from you being in student government. You develop lifelong friends kind of along the way, just by going through your journey. And Ross has a lot of students, but it's amazing how within all of those students, everybody develops like kind of like that personal connection, which is pretty awesome. So, all right. So you said that you were a nurse, obviously. How do you feel that helped you in your journey to becoming a doctor?
I think where it helped me most was in my clinical years. In the first 2 years, it didn't really help me that much, just because medicine is so much deeper, than what is required of a nurse, knowledge-wise. But in my clinical years, just being familiar with the hospital as a whole, not my particular hospital, but just the system and how different people in the hospital interact, and just kind of the flow of the healthcare team and how they all contribute to taking care of the patient made a big difference, because you don't realize when you start how much it makes a difference to just be comfortable in your environment. And I think that was something that I was able to feel from the very beginning, that maybe not a lot of my other classmates had that same experience. And I think also just being a nurse gives you the opportunity to interact with patients at the bedside a lot more. So you kind of are closer to their struggle and you really understand what they're going through. So then being on the other side of that as a student doctor, I was able to really connect with my patients and hear them out and help them in ways that I don't think I could have done had I not had that previous nursing experience. So I kind of took the long route to medical school, but I'm really glad that I did, because it definitely gave me an advantage that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's listening, who's maybe thinking about considering the second career path in medicine, what's your advice to them?
I say go for it. I know I actually have a lot of nursing friends who say that they would love to go to medical school, but it's just like a lot to uproot your life and take on all these loans. And, the journey is long and it's definitely not easy. So it kind of deters a lot of people who already have an established career. But if it's what you really want to do, I think in the end, like, that time is going to pass anyway. You may as well be doing something that you want to do. So looking back, it's been a long 4 years and it definitely has been hard, but I think it was worth it. I do have a lot of loans, but it's been good to finally feel like I'm happy, in the career that I'm going into.
Yeah, actually, I remember a conversation that you, me, and Allie had. Must have been like a year and a half ago, and it was just kind of in the middle of. It was actually probably exactly a year ago. It was in the middle of just kind of all of the COVID craziness and all of that stuff. And I remember I told you guys, I was like, you're gonna look back on this one day in about a year and a half, and we're gonna laugh, and you're gonna say it was all worth it. But yeah, I mean, medical school isn't easy, and I think that there's challenges along the way, regardless of where you go to medical school. So it is a long 4 years, but definitely a rewarding feeling now sitting here at the other end of it, kind of talking retrospectively about those 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. I think, at the time, I don't think that I ever would have looked back and laughed on everything that's happened in the past year. But you were right. Now that it's over and I've matched and tomorrow is my last day of school ever, I mean, it all was worth it. All of the struggle and the hard work and all of that. I mean, it is kind of funny now. Yeah. All
right. So I know you spent a lot of time, obviously, in Mount Sinai, which is where you pre-match, but tell everyone what your clinical experience was like and where you rotated.
So like you said, I did most of my rotations at Sinai. I did do a couple rotations at other hospitals in my 4th year, but mostly at Sinai. And my first rotation actually was internal medicine, which was a little bit intimidating because usually you don't want your first rotation to be the one that you're interested in. You want to like get your feet wet and get a little bit practice and get established with the people there. But it was my first rotation. And I think that in that rotation, I felt very well supported. And I kind of felt like these people were my family. I made a lot of good friends with the residents and just the nurses, other people in the hospital. And I think that really set the tone for the rest of my 3rd year, because in each of my other rotations, I was also able to befriend the residents and find mentors in, attendings who weren't even in my specialty of choice, but who were just really positive role models, and I wanted to learn and they wanted to teach. And that definitely carried into my sub-internship that I did at Sinai my 4th year. I felt like the residents supported me and gave me a lot of autonomy, which, obviously really solidified my decision to pursue internal medicine. And then, when I rotated to other hospitals, I had a good experience, but it just wasn't the same. And, I started to realize that Sinai really felt like home. But the entire way through, I felt very supported. The people at Sinai are very kind. They want to help you. They want to open doors for you. And I think that made a big difference. Some students are afraid that the attendings are going to be mean to them or their residents are going to be mean to them. And that just wasn't at all my experience. Everyone was so kind.
Right. Okay, so you talked about, internal medicine being your first rotation. When did you know that internal medicine was the specialty that you were interested in? Was there like an aha moment? Did you come into medical school knowing it? How did you make that decision?
So kind of both, actually. I did come into medical school wanting to do internal medicine, but I was really interested in cardiology. I was a cardiology nurse before, and I really enjoyed it. So when I first came to med school, I wanted to do internal medicine kind of as a stepping stone to that subspecialty. But kind of the aha moment for me was during my internal medicine rotation in 3rd year. I started to realize that I liked a lot of things. I didn't just like cardiology. I liked, pretty much all the specialties. There really isn't one that I dislike. And then I realized oh, that's why people do internal medicine, because you get to do so much stuff. And so now, I don't know that I'll necessarily pursue cardiology or any specialty really beyond internal medicine, but I really just enjoy having that whole breadth of experience. You get to take care of so many different things, and you get to be, inpatient, and you get to take care of the patients and see them get better with the expectation that they are going to get better and go home, at some point. So I think once I realized that I really enjoy all aspects of medicine, that's when I knew for sure that I was going to apply to internal medicine.
Yeah, great. And okay, so you obviously pre-match. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to do that? Because obviously you love Mount Sinai, we know that, but making a decision to pre-match is sometimes a difficult one. Can you talk a little bit about what made you make that decision?
Sure. So yes, actually it was a lot more difficult than I anticipated. When you hear people talk about pre-match, you think, obviously if I were presented with that same opportunity, I would take it in a heartbeat, but that's honestly just not how it goes. I really felt strongly that I wanted to be at Sinai. And then when I started to get invitations to interview at other places, I was like, wait a minute, these are really nice programs. Do I really want to just throw all of that opportunity away to stay at this hospital? And so I started to consider, what might happen or how I might feel if I decided not to pre-match at Sinai, which of course they hadn't offered me the contract, so I didn't know for sure, but I suspected that they might. So I wanted to be prepared. And I spent, a good 2 weeks really weighing my options, comparing every single program that I was going to interview at to Sinai and deciding whether or not, any of those programs might be a better option for me or a better fit for me, or whether I might like living there better than I like Chicago. And I think what really helped me solidify my decision to stay, aside from the fact that I do love it here and I do feel like these people are a family, I think that, really to some extent you can find that anywhere. But what really solidified my decision to stay was one of my mentors here. We kind of had a conversation about it. And I was like, every residency program is tough. Every intern year sucks. It doesn't matter where you go. What matters though is when you come out on the other side, are you confident to be independent as an attending? Do you feel ready? Or even when you're a senior resident, do you feel ready to take on a full load of patients and supervise interns and 4th year students and 3rd year students? So what really matters in the end is that the program is going to train you to do that and do it well and feel confident. And my mentor, she said, our program is really difficult, but no one comes out on the other side feeling like they aren't ready. And in the end, I decided that's what mattered most to me. And I'm already kind of established in Chicago. And so at that point, it made the decision really easy to decide to stay.
Yeah. I'm smiling because I remember just kind of some of those conversations, and, the back and forth, and
They were tough.
Prematch at Mount Sinai, and I have all of these other programs, and I really like them too. So I remember all of that. So, but I think that decision to, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of folks think the idea of getting a pre-match offer, it's like, oh yeah, of course, I'll accept it without a doubt. But when you start seeing all of the other programs that are out there and talking to them and talking to their residents and things like that, it's a difficult decision to make. It's not as easy as everybody thinks. So, awesome.
Yeah, so, and I think,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, I actually did a few interviews before I interviewed with Sinai, and I really felt like I connected with a lot of the people in those interviews too. And so even now, months later after accepting the pre-match, I still think about those programs and sometimes wonder, would I have been happy there, or like, would I fit in well with those people that I connected with over Zoom? Not like in a regret kind of way, just like, oh, I had that opportunity. I have a better opportunity here, but I don't know. It was just like a very tough, but like fond experience. I don't know how to describe the feeling. It's kind of bittersweet because you realize that you had so many good opportunities that it was hard to choose. And that's like not a bad spot to be in, I guess.
Right, that's definitely not a bad spot to be in. That's a spot everybody wants to be in. So, obviously you wowed them at Sinai for them to extend the pre-match offer to you. What tips do you have for folks that are maybe just starting into their clinical journey on how to really wow their attendings, how to make a good impression for the folks that they're working with at the hospitals?
I think at least what I feel like set me apart, aside from my nursing experience, I think one of the things that I did that made me stand out was I read every single day. And I know like you'll hear attendings tell you to read more, and you'll hear residents to tell you to read. And so it's kind of an understood thing, like you have to read. But when you actually start doing it, when you actually read something every single day, it really starts to show, and they notice, because you read something and then you teach your peers about it, and then they turn around and ask you about a random topic in rounds, and it just happens to be the thing that you read that morning or last night right before you went to bed. And so then everybody on the team looks good because you did your due diligence. You spent 15 minutes just reading something, and then you taught everyone around you. And it's not just that it makes you look smart, it makes you look dedicated, because it shows that you are like putting in just a little bit of effort every single day, not only for yourself, but for the people around you, because you teach the other students on your team that information. I taught nurses a lot of information. The nurses and I swapped information a lot of times. So that was really fun. But I think, that knowledge really starts to come out and show against the people who don't read every single day. And I think the other thing that made me stand out, or at least in my mind, it made me stand out, was that I really took the time to like let people know that I appreciated the time and the energy that they were investing in me. It didn't matter, if they were the residents I was working with, or some random attending who wanted to give me like a side lecture in the hallway, or the radiology tech who wanted to teach me something about contrast enemas, whatever the case may be. If, especially like the nurses in NICU. I remember NICU was my very first rotation on peds. I have no experience with peds or kids or babies beyond like babysitting. But the nurses, I was like, well, if I ask them, maybe they'll teach me some things. And they like completely took me under their wing. We had a great week together. I bought them donuts at the end. But these people, like, they remember when they take time out of their day to teach you something, and then you turn around and you say thank you, or you just like write them a thank you card or buy them donuts. They remember those things, and word, like, gossip gets around really fast at the hospital. I tell you, when I took my pre-match, I didn't have to tell anyone because everyone knew. And so these people, who you're appreciative to, they talk, and those people talk to important people. And I think that really made a difference, because so many people in that hospital knew that I appreciated what they had done for me, and that I would probably turn around and do that for someone else because I appreciated it.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, that goes, just the reputation that you built for yourself goes such a long way. And, I will even say, with my personal experience with Kayla, everybody that talks about Kayla loves Kayla. That goes from RUSM to staff to everyone. But really that impression that you make really goes a long way, because those people talk to other people, and it's like, and that's why we're here on this live stream, because it's like, let's feature Kayla. So, but yeah, I definitely agree with you. We actually have a question from one of the audience members, and that's what resources or journals do you read and follow the most?
I would say in the beginning, I read a lot of UpToDate just because that was the easiest thing to access. Usually you have free access through the hospital. I'm pretty sure we have free access through ROS. So a lot of times I would see a patient, with pancreatitis, and then I would just look up pancreatitis on UpToDate. But now I still, of course, use UpToDate, but I get emails from like different societies. I get emails from ACP, emails from HSM, which you'll start getting too once you get into your clinical years and you start doing case reports. You have to register as like a student member for these societies, and then those societies will send you emails and like magazines in the mail every month. Like there's just so much to choose from to read. There's actually an app on my phone that I learned about in one of my rotations only a couple months ago. It's called Journal Club. And I think it's like $7. It's like $6 or $7. But there's a ton of like quality peer-reviewed articles in that app, and you have access to them once you pay like the one-time fee. And it really breaks it down for you, so you don't have to sit and read like a 20-page research article. You can just read like the short of it and really get the information from it. And it's so quick. I just lay in my bed at night and read like one 5-minute article every day. It's so easy.
Awesome. All right, so switching gears a little bit, obviously we know that COVID kind of changed all of our lives. So talk a little bit about how that kind of impacted your journey. How did you adapt, and what that looked like?
Okay, so I was already on a pretty tight timeline as far as match was concerned. So then when COVID happened and we got pulled from our rotations, I was really nervous that I actually wasn't going to make this match cycle at all, just because we, weren't in rotations. But it wasn't terrible to adapt because Ross was able to set up the online electives. So I was still able to do some elective weeks online, which kind of kept me on track. And then the really nice thing for me personally with the whole COVID situation is before I was not going to get any dedicated study time for Step 2 CK. Just because the way my timeline fell, I was really hoping to have a month of dedicated study, and I wasn't going to get it. But because of COVID, I was home doing online electives, and I was able to take 4 weeks off so that I could really focus. And not a lot of students take that time off, but I didn't do as well on Step 1 as I had hoped. I mean, I did fine, but not as well as I had hoped. So I really was grateful that I had that time to really boost my CK score in comparison. And then I think the other really difficult part was I did have a couple of family members pass away during that time, and I wasn't able to go home and because of travel restrictions, but I still, I still had to be here and study and stay on track so that I didn't miss the match. So that was definitely tough. There was something else. The other thing that was really challenging for me with COVID is that because my third year rotations got delayed, there were actually 2 rotations, OB and Psych, that I wasn't going to be able to take in time to take Step 2 CK. So I actually had to teach them to myself while I was in the online electives and the other rotations so that I was prepared to take CK on time. So I actually took CK before I even did those rotations. So that was definitely tough, but it was doable. I mean, I did it and it was fine. But it was just a lot of stress, I think, just because I really wanted to stay on my timeline. But, sometimes I think when stressful situations like this happen, you figure out how badly you want something. And I really, really wanted to not miss this match cycle. So I just made it happen. Yeah. But I think also just being on the boat and dealing with the hurricane all of my first semester kind of prepared me for that. I think had I not had that experience, I may not have been able to, look past everything that was going on and just focus on what I needed to do. So I think that experience, as difficult as it was, really prepared me for COVID and all of the difficulties that came with it.
Yeah, and I want to add that Kayla did all of that she just described with studying for Step 2 CK, doing switching to online electives and all of that, while also being a super active member of student government and just kind of advocating for students and trying to see how we can just make the process easier, how we can communicate better to the students what's going on. I think we were all thrown into like this period where it was really unprecedented. Like nobody had experienced this before, so it was a huge learning curve for Ross from the administrative and leadership ends, and then for the students as well. So I mean, Kayla played just such an awesome role as a student leader, just trying to, she set up town halls so that, a communication can constantly flow from Ross to students, and she really did a tremendous job with that, and that's that kind of conversation that I alluded to earlier with her and Allie, which was another one of our student government leaders at the time, and it was a really stressful time for everyone, and I think that just looking back on it now, everything just kind of fell into place for everyone. So now we think back about that really stressful time, and it's like, oh, I was able to do the online electives, but I was also able to study through CK, which, by the way, Kayla killed it on CK. She did awesome. So it's funny how things work out a certain way. So. All right, let's see. Next question. So after you're done with residency, what are some of your goals after that? I mean, I know you mentioned that you're interested in cardiology, but you're not super stuck on that, and you're just kind of riding the wave to see where the future takes you. But what are some future career goals that you have?
So I like this question a lot because I think a lot of people expect you to have this whole plan in place for the next 10 years, right? And the truth about it is that I don't. Like you said, I like a lot of things, so I'm not really sure, where I plan to go with that. But what I do know, though, is that I did really enjoy my time on student government and my time in the student ambassador program, helping to change policies and make things easier for other people. So I think that I probably would enjoy academic medicine and being involved in medical education as an attending. Whatever specialty I decide to do, I probably will do something that allows me to advocate for residents and for medical students, just for more humanistic training and training that's more efficient, and that really listening to what people want and trying to make that happen. I like that, and I have a lot of experience with it now, thanks to Ross. So I think I'll probably continue to do that. As far as my interests, I do like cardiology. I also like critical care, and I like endocrinology, and I kind of like hospitalist work, just being inpatient and rounding with the students and teaching them things, and modeling appropriate behavior, things like that made a big difference to me during my rotation. I probably will seek out something that gives me the opportunity to do that.
Awesome. Okay, so I know we're a little over, just 5 minutes left here. Any just kind of last minute tips, advice, parting words?
I guess if I had to give any last advice, I would just say to try to be the type of student that people want to open doors for. There are a lot of great students, or a lot of students who are good at medicine, or who do well in the medicine part of their rotations. But I think it really sets you apart when you invest in the relationships with the people around you who want to use their influence to help you, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you are. You can't be as successful as you could be if it's just you just trying to open doors for yourself. But if you are the kind of student who people want to work with and who people want to open doors for, they can use their influence to give you opportunities that you wouldn't have been able to get by yourself. So don't discount those opportunities to form those relationships and keep up with them. Even when you leave the rotation, that doesn't mean that automatically you stop talking to those residents or those attendings who helped you at the time. Maintain those over time, because those people will give you a lot of opportunities that, like I said, you couldn't have gotten on your own.
Awesome. So thank you so much for sitting with me today. It's funny. So Kayla and I probably message every single day. So I told her, I'm like, old random conversation here. I have to make it seem like we're prepared. But thank you. Honestly, I think your answers have been awesome. They've been super insightful for folks, whether they're in at Ross right now, whatever phase of their journey, or even folks that are just thinking about maybe enrolling. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's watching. We really appreciate your time this evening, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.